All right, everyone. We'd like to welcome you. Come on in because tonight is Wednesday night and you're at the right place to be thinking about trunk or treat. Yes, trunk or treat. Make sure you are ready to go 4 p.m. this Saturday. So the plan is we're going to have the food in the fellowship hall along with along with crafts. And then we're going to have cotton candy, and of course 20 trunks have signed up for outside, and fire pits are outside. Yeah, even if it's snowing, we'll do it. We're on.
Can we sit in our cars if we volunteer?
Yes, or you can come into the food. Come in and sit inside. Warm up inside, and then run back out there. It's a trunk or treat. Regardless of how cold it is or hot. And it won't stick to the pavement. The ground's too warm. It'll be cold though, so you can run in, get something to eat, run back out. Okay, that was this coming Saturday. There still needs to be some helpers. So Daryl has a sign-up sheet right there. See, there's like all kinds of papers. So
we still need some, we're only doing one bouncy house, and I'm even depending on the weather with that, depending on.
Okay.
But we do need some help with some face painting and the craft booth, which we're going to do that inside. So if you want to be inside, there you go.
There you go. There you go. And so pass these out to your friends. They all go somewhere. Might as well come over here, right? It's free. And yeah, and there's candy. And there's food. And that's the announcement. What other announcements? Okay. Well, we're going to split on up here into our various sundry places. Let's see here. I'll find it in just a second. Patty was somewhere out there. Oh, there you are. You're all good. I was just saying, doing really well. Don't even know she's got anything. Hit her head, right? And then we have, of course, Doug's getting healed up with his wrist. Anybody heard any latest, like Dave Plum or anybody? He went in for right. Yeah, he went in to get his knee drained, and they said, "Nope, we're gonna check you out with the heart." Okay. Good.
But his top part of his heart was enlarged a little, so we'll do more tests on that. And so instead of the surgery on his knee, they decided to pump him full of antibiotics.
Okay. Right. He's had some physical issues. Nothing like going in for one thing and they're like, no, let's do something else. You're like, oh, on and on. Okay. And of course, with Miss Terry over here, finding out what is going on. Come on in. Okay. Well, we're going to say a prayer. As soon as we get the last little group in here. Hello, welcome. Come on in. But we're going to pray and then you can leave. But you don't have to. Everybody's welcome to stay. You guys do a great job of spreading out as far as you can. Keep it up. Just think, in a few years, who will remember there used to be grass right here? Offer the various services spectacular ways. So we trust that you'll continue to do so in the future. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. A little bit by talking about the law here in a few minutes. But the book is actually a lot more relevant than we often give it credit for. We struggle with that, don't we? Because when I say, well, that person's really good compared to a lot of people, and they read a struggle for us, though, because then when we see someone and they're like, oh man, it's a difficult person, and they cause a lot of problems, and surely they're not going to heaven. And so, what is Paul doing in the book of Galatians? 6 little chapters. We're going to be entering chapter 3 tonight. You could really say 3 words. 3 words. There we go. I'll get the 3 out in a minute. 3 words. What are the 3 words? Justification by faith. That's all Paul's doing. That every person who's ever lived, well, number 1, right? I didn't just dream this up. I actually saw Jesus after he'd been resurrected on a road to Damascus. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And so he was not on the right track or the pathway enough to persecute, and Paul mentioned the other, by revelation and not by perspiration, right? He got this thing only from Jesus. And so it's his personal argument. So his transformation, that was the personal argument. We probably should jump into this now, this doctrinal argument. So chapter 3, and we'll, of course, spend quite a few nights kind of mulling over 3 and 4 here. 3 is very rich, but very difficult. And so let's see if we can get into this. You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. This is the only thing I want to find out from you. Doctrinal argument of justification by faith. He says, first little 6 verses, he gives kind of a subpart. This is like part 1, like a little argument. If they received the Spirit by faith, are you so foolish, having begun by the Spirit? Do you now think you're being perfected by the flesh? Did you suffer so many things in vain? If indeed it was in vain. Does he then, who provides you with the Spirit and works miracles among you, do it by the works of the law or by with faith? Remember, Abraham, he believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. So that's his little subplot there. How did they receive the Holy Spirit? By believing and not by the law. Understanding that, wow, if you receive the gift of the Holy Spirit by faith, why do you think you'd be saved by law? And so a little sub-argument. But let's get into it, because all I want to do tonight is get down through 14 and have a chance to look at the trifecta of course, all of Paul's writings. This is the heart of the concept of justification by faith. And he uses, when we say the doctrinal argument, what doctrine does he use? He only exclusively uses the law. So he's going to use the law to prove that you're only justified by faith. So he's not going to use New Testament or even New Testament thought. He's using Old Testament thought only to prove that you're only justified by faith. So it's kind of right? I mean, God's pretty good here, of course, doing this thing through Paul. And so he's going to use the Old Testament. And so we have to think about that as we go through. So let's just kind of do that for a moment. When you hear the word law, regulations, right? 613 of them. Hebrews 9 dives into that concept of, well, there's this thing, and it's like all these different things that you do that was given to by Moses. Okay, what else when you hear the word law is there? How else could we think about the law? Did you guys add one over here? I'm sorry. Quote anything from the Old Testament. The 10 Commandments. The first 10 Commandments given. So it's like, that's the law. Like when he talks about summarizing the law. How do you summarize the 10 Commandments? Love God, love your neighbor. That's the 10 Commandments. And so it's like 10 Commandments is the law. One reason we do this, because we get sidetracked with lots of different people today who want to say, we hear it all the time. Like, you'll hear all kinds of things, both in the church and outside the church and with other groups. And we got groups that think you have to still follow the law, part of the law. And so they still go to church on Saturday, which is right. As soon as the Jews became Christians, they all started going on Sunday, even though that was a work day. Do you think they really wanted to do that when they had Saturday? But the work day. And so it's like, we don't follow the Ten. If you follow the Ten Commandments, first of all, you're living by law. Murder. Well, good for you. Right? But you thought about killing him in your heart, which is worse. So, right? So the Ten Commandments is all that external stuff. Sometimes when you hear law, it's the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, right? And so there's like those 5. Matthew 5, Sermon on the Mount, he does that. He'll think of, it's like the words written by Moses, Genesis there, verse 5. And so when we hear the word law, there's kind of like all kinds of different ways. The New Testament translators try to help you every so often by sometimes just saying Mosaic law, so that that he's kind of the writer's referring back to that thing. So Old Testament, and he calls the entire Old Testament as that nation. And so it would be very difficult for any of us to follow those laws, right? We don't have a temple, and we don't have any high priest, and really can't even follow the Ten Commandments. It's like all of that's so muddled. But anyway, you'll see groups that still claim to follow the Ten Commandments even today. All right, so let's get into the text. I've been with, in all my different getting with people all day today, it's been an interesting day. Do you guys feel like it's an interesting day? It's like, I think everybody's realizing, oh no, winter's coming. Oh, and there's a little depression that kind of rumbles out there. We had a staff meeting this morning, and everybody was really, and you're like, yep, winter's setting. I can talk all night about verse 7. It only condemns. Shall be blessed in you. So then those who are of faith are blessed with Abraham the believer. So he sets up in those 3 verses, he sets up his next 2 arguments. He says, I'm first going to talk about how the law can only give a curse, and that the promise gives a blessing. And so first he's going to talk about the curse, then he's going to talk about the blessing. So the blessing comes through the promise, the curse comes through the law. And so that's what he's going to set up. So anytime we think about today, okay, that person's really good, and if I'm like 51% good, I will get to go to heaven too. So I just need to be better than I am bad. What number will it take for us to go to heaven? Do we have to be 51% good, 49%, 30%, right? And so his point being, the law can only do what? Condemn. So if you are going 60 in a 55-mile zone, what does the law say you are? A law breaker. Are you 5% lawbreaker? No, once you went 56, you are a 100% lawbreaker person. I always use Mother Teresa because she's everybody always does that, right? Mother Teresa. It's like, well, right? I mean, why do some people think, oh yeah, she's a shoo-in? Why? Well, because she was really good. And you're like, well, was she? Maybe, maybe not. But let's say she was, I don't know. But anyway, and doing good things, we're in the law camp automatically, aren't we? And so I don't know. I refused to kiss Mother Teresa, and that caused a little problem, but that's a story for another day. So here we go. Back to this thing. Regarding the law, or like goodness and all this stuff we're talking about, these are the three verses you should pick out. Paul, of course, is writing to these people who are like would have had it probably memorized, and so it's a little easier for them. And so he's going to go through three. He's going to use Deuteronomy 27:26, Habakkuk 2 verse 4, and Leviticus 18 verse 5. And so that's our three that he's going to zoom in on, two of which are law to perform them. So what's his first point? If you break one, you've broken them all. It's over. You can't be a sort of a lawbreaker. Once you've broken one, you are a law breaker. And so, what's that thing we talk about? It's like, kind of, what is that saying people will use? Find me a man and I'll show you a criminal or something. It's like, we're all criminals. You guys know that, right? I mean, I promise you have all broken the law, even the U.S. laws, every single one of you, right? It's like amazing. When you start getting into government, have a sam.gov number, and every year they start asking more and more questions. And this year they've added, you certify under felony penalties, blah, 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 that your organization follows all of these. And then they had, actually the law say, and then I clicked on it, and it took me to the actual statute, and it's like pages and pages. A drug-free workplace must do the following. You must post that you're a drug-free workplace. You must have this and this. And I start going, holy cow, there's like all these stipulations. Okay, and so I took that over, to the crew and said, do we do all of this? And let's make sure we do all of this. But you're like, it's just thing after thing of like all these little points about, did you make sure every employee had the policy handed to them in writing as well as, and they signed off? Did you like post it in certain places? Do you have a thing that you do if they're with drugs but not at the workplace? And of course, I don't really need to get into all of that. It's a lot easier to say, when's the last time you went 26 going down this street right over here? That's 25. And the little thing is, you're going too fast, you're going too fast. You're like, it's 25. Who made that? Anyway, what is that street? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. What? Martin, thank you. Bye. I mean, it's just like really it is. It's like, so, and we understand this principle, don't we? No matter how much we want to believe differently, there is no difference between going 26 and killing a human being. Both are considered what? Law breakers. In the sense of, are you going to go to heaven based on it's over. Right? I mean, it's just over. You were in, 11th grade, and the class clown did yet something really stupid one more time. I'm not looking at you, Daryl. Sorry. The class clown did something in the class, and you were like, and it's kind of irritated you a little bit, and you're like, oh. I mean, it's on purpose like that, right? We know that's why God did it this way. He purposefully did all this stuff. I mean, it just goes on and on. This is crazy, right? Yeah. All kinds of stuff that's in there. Deuteronomy 27:26. Well, he says, we'll look at what the law says. The righteous man shall live by law. No, he says the righteous man shall live by faith. You believe is true, God will forgive you and you will go to heaven. See, they are all what? Law followers. Christians. Sincere Christian does. Here we are. You guys made it. I'll sign your ticket on the way out. Defining what a sincere Christian looks like. Yeah? Didn't have a real good answer for that one either, Well, I'll give you a partial answer for both of those. One reason it's so difficult to define the sincere Christian is he didn't give us Leviticus. It surely isn't it? It's like, do you have to love the majority of people, some people? I use that in my life group, I love it when I do with song leader at Harding, and, the policewoman, went to the wrong floor and killed him while he was sitting there eating cereal. And she was found guilty, and her parole is up here in a few weeks. She's already served like 6 years or something. Time flies, doesn't it? But she was sentenced to 10 years originally, and, but in the courtroom, right, the guy, the brother said, "I forgive you." And that's nice, but did he really forgive her? Forgiveness is when he would have said, "Okay." Otherwise, you're just saying words to help yourself feel good, really. I mean, we don't really have any of these words defined biblically. Forgiveness isn't, somebody needs to still have to go to jail, so I'll do it. That's forgiveness, right? In the biblical definition. Now, it's forgiveness. But nothing is free. So letting it go, somebody has to pay the price still. Whoever that is. Whoever pays the price is the one doing right? It's like, you guys understand that concept, right? It's like forgiveness and all these words that we're using biblically are actually a lot more powerful words than just, I got to let it go and forgive them. And you're like, well, okay. So you're prepared to take their penalty and let them go free. In other words, when you say the word forgive, the debt is what? Forgiven. When the debt's forgiven, do they still pay the penalty going around in your head to the point where you are going to say, I don't actually practice that kind of thing like that, right? Because you can go on to those kind of definitions. Like, love is when you hold no record of wrongs, and like that's Leviticus 18:5. And so, what's that one mean? The law is not of faith. The one who practices them will live by them. You're not justified when you follow the law, but if you follow the law perfect, what are you? Together is when you keep it. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, etc., and love your neighbor as yourself. And of course, what does the crowd and everybody around do in all those moments? It's kind of like, yeah, okay. Because can any of us actually love God like that and love our neighbor like that? So it's the dilemma of the law. You got to.
I've heard and all that stuff. It's the limit, and you can't take two eyes if they took one eye. So it's faith is limitless, just like the love God. Love is limitless. Mm-hmm. So it kind of is liberating in that way.
Liberating is the great word, isn't it? So if I'm living by faith and not by law, I'm liberated. And so that's the whole point Paul's making, isn't it? It's like you only got two choices. You don't get the third choice. No matter how hard you think that's the third choice, you don't get it. That's what he's saying. That the third door is you live by faith, but you still got to be a pretty good person is the right answer. But what is define for me a person? That's what Paul's really saying. Paul's saying the only way you can be a pretty good person, according to Leviticus 18:5, is do what? Keep the law perfectly. Do you know anybody who's a perfect Christian? Then it doesn't really matter. We can nuance it all we want. But at the end of the day, they went to church 20 times a month, 10 times a month. They think about God all the time or part of the time. They pray once a month or 3 times a month. Now we're just talking about how far away from truthfully down in the because we still can't believe. We do. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Right. Unless you're in Oregon. But anyway, sorry. That was news today. Oregon's going to continue to postpone. They're not going to have any tests for high schoolers graduating until at least 2029. Well, let's do the little side point that he makes so we can kind of get the little addendum there. Verse 30, law. And yeah, we do want to measure all kinds of stuff, don't we? So if that's the case, right? If it's like this, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith, it is a challenge. But because since, like Ken's saying, we like to measure so many things, it's hard to let that go. It's hard to say, but I would like for God to tell me if I'm actually getting in. Well, yeah, because we like to be in control and do a little more, and you'll be okay. Yeah. It's such a strange thing here tonight. We'll have a women's side and a men's side, or you're not in. I mean, it could be that simple, right? I mean, the level of law can be really high. And you're like, oh, Jesus, right? He just hit him right where it hurt. And so you're like, oh, no. But it's Jesus is wealthy, and so compared to the rest of the world. So it's just like the bar can just keep going. We could keep going forever. The bar could be set. Just think of the good things we could do. Your comments. Maybe it won't get too cold. Come to the Fall Festival on Saturday. And Sunday, Devin's preaching. So he's excited. It's his first time to preach on the English side. And so give him a little bit of support and encourage him. With the stage being up, whether you're in or out, right? Where's your faith? No. All right, guys. Thanks for coming.